Hi everyone, my name is Halie Corbitt. As she said, I'm a IFAS extension agent in Columbia County. Family Consumer Sciences is my specialty, and I'm also the state lead for VITA for the IFAS extension program. VITA stands for Volunteer Income Tax Assistance, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. I also have Daniel here with me. He is actually an FSU student, hence his little logo going on there. He said he couldn't be among all SUF and not have a little bit of FSU represented there. He is the VITA virtual coordinator. So we'll talk a little bit about it, but the extension or the virtual VITA program is run throughout the entire state of Florida with IFAS extension offices, some of them participating. So it's a wide branch kind of thing. So in case you don't know what extension is, which I'm hoping all of you do, but I'm going to say that some of you may not. So extension is part of the land grant agreement that was created many, many moons ago and then revised. And so our funding comes through there. But the honest idea is to take the research that is done at UF and bring it to the public in a way that they can understand. That's the bottom line of what we do. So all the research that's done at UF is put into a form that the everyday person can use. And what I mean by that is technical terms are a little bit looser, those kind of things, so that everybody can understand. Money management classes, tax classes, all of these kind of things aren't typically taught in our school systems anymore. So that is where I, as a family consumer science agent, come in and try to make sure that I help mend those gaps for the people coming up, for students, and even for people who, if finances wasn't talked about in your home, which is more common than you would think, I'm that person that kind of helps bridge that gap. But extension does so much more than just finances. I also, just under my category of family and consumer sciences, I do food safety, I do home buyer classes. I'm also in charge of the telehealth program. I'm accredited financial counselor. I do cooking classes, canning classes, anything like that, relationship related, anything. And then of course you also have what everybody thinks of with extension ag. So we have livestock, natural resources, horticulture, and then any type of crops. And then we have 4-H or youth development. And we also have community resource development. So there are lots of different areas inside of extension. So you're only seeing a very tiny piece of it today.
All right, I'll start off on this slide. This is to let you guys know that everyone's taxes just look a little different. You know, like you might have different things coming in today. So today we just want to give you a little bit of basic information on your taxes for this year and years to come.
I also want to make mention that this is for U.S. citizens. If you have any international questions, those will need to go to the International Center.
Next slide for me. There we go. So have you completed your taxes this year? It's getting a little late. I think you guys got it. If you haven't filed already, you have about 2 weeks left. It looks like for this year, it's April 18th. Usually it's April 15th, which but since that falls on a weekend, they extending it to the 18th. A little funny story. I was actually, even though I'm working in taxes, I was born on April 15th on tax day. So working in taxes, born on taxes, you could say that I was born to do this. I actually came out of my mom's womb with a pair of glasses and a pencil in my hand, ready to file her medical expenses for that year. So don't worry, I have you for this year. But yes, so since that is filing your taxes, and if you use our extension, it doesn't mean that you're filing a return. You still have to pay your own taxes and whatnot. And then next, thank you. All right, so taxes in Florida. It's we do federal taxes. Since you're living in Florida, thankfully you don't have to really deal with state taxes. That's for other states to worry about. For you, you do federally, where it kind of pays as you go. So I'm sure, I don't know if you're aware, but when you receive your money, some of it's taken out for Uncle Sam and whatnot. And if you overpay the government, you get that money back. And if you underpay it at the end of the year, you're going to have to spend, you're going to have to give that extra money back to the government, which we can talk about that in a couple slides down for fixing and whatnot. Now, who files taxes? Just about everybody. You can't escape two things, sorry, death and taxes. So chances are when you are retired or older, or even now, you're going to be filing your taxes. And that's how they deduct it year from year. And that's usually through regular jobs or whatnot. And on top of that, self-employed is actually a very, very it's a pain in the butt thing. I've dealt with a lot of people who've done self-employed, and at the end of the year, they might owe over just 1,000 taxes just because they did a job that gave them 10,000 on the side. So if you're doing self-employed, please remember the one thing you got to remember is that you have to plan for your taxes ahead of time. So if you do so, please feel be a reach out for information to reach out to us that if you are self-employed, please ask us questions about that because you will be saving yourself a massive headache later in the year if you don't plan ahead of time. All right, next slide, please.
The last thing I wanted to add to that, Daniel, is you made a very good point. Death and taxes, you can't escape. My favorite one, though, is at what age do you get to escape taxes? And the answer is there is not an age. You have to pay taxes as long as you have income high enough that taxes are required. So if you ever heard that there's an age where you stop, that is not fact. I just like to point that one out there because I get asked that question every year.
All right, so the tax basics. This is the IRS likes to be a little nosy about your taxes. So they want to know kind of what your life is about. Like, are you single? Are you married? Are you married separately? Do you have kids in your house? Or is there something more personal with your spouse no longer with us? So that kind of determines your deduction, which is a standard deduction that the government gives that it reduces your taxable income. And then on top of that, there's also credits that they give out for people of, again, just your personal life. Like, do you have child tax credits? Now, keep in mind that some of these credits are non-refundable. So they might just reduce your income while others net against what you owe. So if you get much higher credit, that might give you some money back. Just want to throw that out there. But yeah, there's child tax credit or earned income credit where it's like you make some money, but you don't make enough money. So the government kind of throws that in there. And then there's also other more specific ones like, did you improve your home for electricity reasons, solar, all that stuff. So just know that there is a lot of credits and these are kind of just the more basic ones. Next slide, please. Thank you. Now, this is your tax return. This is the 1040. This is usually the main thing that you are submitting to the IRS. Usually when you file or someone else files, they'll put all the information from your forms and then they throw it in there into the computer and then it'll pump out this 1040, which makes our lives a lot easier. I'm definitely here for the computer age because it makes it a lot easier. Where you'll see, all the lines of income, then it's a little tiny, but you'll see like standard deduction, taxable income, and all that stuff. Next slide, please. Thank you. Now, these are 1099s. Now, 1099s is usually income that comes outside from your W-2, your job. You'll be seeing a lot of these if you have dividends from stocks and bonds. You have your 1099 div. You have your interest statement from payments and all that. Then on top of that, you have, and if you deal with sale and purchase of stocks and bonds, you get that, health HSA, which is health savings account, you pull out of that, 1099. You have a random side job, 1099 NEC, like anytime you kind of receive money that's not from your main job that you work through a company, there's a good chance you'll see a 1099. After that, now this is your W-2. If you are you're employed through a job, you will definitely be seeing this every year until you don't anymore. But this is where you see your gross income. It shares your, how much federally tax withheld and withheld for Social Security, Medicare, and kind of how all that works together. That would be the main top half, and then the bottom half is state information, which again, you don't have to worry about since you live in the Sunshine State. So now I wouldn't worry about that unless you live in, like, I don't know, I think it's 45 states have state income tax. It's just Florida and a couple others. Next slide, please.
All right. So we talked about different types of income. Your 1099s are typically going to be more of those like self-employment kind of incomes. And then your W-2 tends to be the one from your main employer, probably what most of you have and that kind of thing. I like to bring it up and I like to point it out because I've seen this issue more this year than probably in any years past. So we talked about your W-2, which is how you're actually paid. And then you have this box called federal income tax withheld. Well, how is that determined? Actually, you determine that with the form called the W-4, okay? And so when you fill this out, it determines how much they actually withhold. There are lots of questions. They've now even updated it this year, as you see, a 2023 form, where it goes into more details to ask you more questions about your life, how many children you have, all of those kind of things. And then there is even one to help you with multiple jobs. The reason I want to point this out is this year, we've had quite a few people on their W-2s who did not withhold enough taxes. And the reason why is when they completed this W-4, they claimed a number that was too high and didn't take out the taxes that were needed. So this is that form when you hear people talk about, oh, I claimed 0, oh, I claimed 1, oh, I claimed 2, oh, I claimed 4, whatever that is, this is that sheet. But what it is you determine, even if you read this sheet and like, I could always be a 1, okay? Actually, I could be a 3 if you want the truth, because I am married and I have 2 children, okay? So I could claim head of household and I could have 2 children. Granted, I'll be honest with you, I let my husband claim the head of household piece, but that doesn't matter. The point is I could claim 3. However, because of the amount of income I make, and I know this, and I also am one of these people who technically have multiple jobs. I get 2 W-2s because as a extension employee, we're paid by state and county. So that brings me into a whole nother category. So you have to think about these things as you're going through. So just because you can say 3 does not say that you should say 3. You need to figure out what's best for you. So I'm also going to give you a tool today that we have a sheet that kind of gives you a cheat sheet for it that was created by Extension that actually walks you through the app and how to use it. And then I also have the app up here. So if you have a typical income, and there's even one for pensions. So say you're getting close to retirement and you have an idea what your pension's going to be, there's a calculator that you can also use for pensions. It is going to ask you quite a few questions. It's going to ask you what your income was. It's going to ask you about your 2 last statements. So like your 2 last pay stubs, you're going to want to pull them because they want to know how much you've paid in taxes already, how much your gross was, how much you're paying in medical expenses, all of those kind of things. So it does dig very deep, but it is a great tool to help you determine how much taxes you need to do. I tell people, honestly, you need to, in your mind, just think about when you're looking at your paycheck, pay stub, and your W-2, if you're not at 10%, you're probably not in a great place. So that's kind of just a good mindset. Now, this calculator will give you exact numbers. So this is the best resource that you can use, okay? However, when you're just kind of looking at things, you want to make sure that they're taking about 10% taxes out of your pay stub every time. If you do not have a pay stub, if you're a 1099, you will not be able to use this tool. However, the same concept applies. Put away 10% of everything that you make a month because you're going to wind up having to pay that back in taxes. Also, remember with self-employment, and there's a little bit thing down here, there's also a self-employment tax. I like to point this one out, and I'm going to go back 2 slides to show you because most people don't pick up on this one. So on a W-2, this is what it looks like versus our 1099s. Have different boxes, but if you notice, it doesn't have all the taxes listed here. It doesn't matter which box you look at. None of these have all the taxes. So your W-2 has not only your federal income tax withheld, but it also has Social Security tax withheld and Medicare tax withheld. Well, when you're self-employed, nobody withholds any taxes for you. So you calculate your federal income taxes 10% out, but then you also still have to pay these Social Security and Medicare taxes. So that's called self-employment tax. So that also gets added to your taxes when you're doing it. So not only the 10% you owe, but also the taxes you owe for the other things. Another thing I always like to talk about is ways to pay or receive your refund. So everybody gets so excited when we receive refunds, which is awesome and amazing. And I think that's a great thing. However, this year, again, we've seen changes because the rules went back to pre-COVID. And so there have been a lot more people that have actually owed this year than in the past. Well, with this, a lot of people are going, oh my gosh, what do I do? How do I handle this? So I want to point out a couple things here. If you get a refund, that's fine. You also want to find a balance with that. You don't want to give the government a free loan for the entire year because they pay you no interest on your money. But I will tell you, if you owe them, they will expect interest and they will give you a penalty for paying yours late. So remember that pay-as-you-go system? That's how the federal government looks at your taxes. So you want to be sure that you are paying it along. So even if you're self-employed, make those estimated payments on the dates so that at the end of the year, you're not charged interest and penalties on the great amount that you owe. So if you're refund, there's a couple ways you can get it back. It's by mail or direct deposit. So if you electronically file, they definitely highly recommend direct deposit. And what I mean by that is it literally gets dropped into your account. And for most people, that's within 10 business days. So it's a very quick return. By mail is still an option, and I have clients that still choose it. It just takes a little bit longer for that check to get to you in the mail. However, it does eventually come. When we talk about the UON piece, they also have an option now. It's called direct pay. So say the day you file your taxes, you knew that you were going to owe, so you've been saving and you want to go ahead and pay it. We can put in the same account info that would go to put it in, can also be used to take it out, and we can even set the date. Remember, as long as you make your payments before the end of the tax season, the 18th this year, you are good to go. But if you wait after, there will be interest and penalties and all kinds of things added on top of that. That's why the comment was made on one of the first slides about an extension. You can file for an extension if you need one. However, that does not extend the amount of taxes that you have due. So if you wait, you're paying interest and penalties on those taxes. Also, another one that I get a lot is if they have a lump sum due, more than $1,000, you have the interest and penalties. And if you have more than $1,000, a lot of people don't just have that sitting around cash in hand, easy to go. Okay. Especially if you ain't been prepping for it. That's a lot of money at once. So there are different options that they have. You can, if you file early, you can wait until that 18th to pay it. So you have time to save without having to do anything extra. But you can electronically pay now through when you file. You can also go back in and they have ways you can pay online. You can technically pay with a credit card, even though I would not encourage that because the amount of interest you're going to gain on that money is probably not going to benefit you in either way. And then you can also pay by mail, just the same thing. But that check, that envelope that the check is in has to be postmarked by April 18th. Also, you want to be sure that it's written to the correct place. Also, the last one I want to talk about is payment options. So the IRS does set up payment plans if it's something that you really just can't afford or something you weren't expecting. And so there are different things that they can do. Know, though, that those do come with interest and penalties because it's just like giving you a loan. There's always going to be interest involved. All right, this is another one of my favorite questions that I get all year. Where is my refund? Okay, so you filed your taxes now, but your refund hasn't hit your account, and you just heard me say 10 business days, and it's been 11, and you don't know where it is. I will tell you that your tax preparer has no idea where it is. So I don't care what system you use as your tax preparer, they have no idea where it is, okay? The Treasury, IRS Treasury now knows where your money is, and that's who you need to go to. So irs.gov/refunds, if you go in, you enter some of your basic information, and it'll tell you exactly where it is in the process. It'll tell you that your return has been processed, it hasn't been processed. If you wanted a mail check, it'll tell you they mailed the check. If you wanted a deposit, it'll say it was deposited. It doesn't typically tell you the date and time, but it can. If you don't see it within 24 to 48 hours of it saying it's been deposited, that's when you call and ask questions. But unfortunately, no tax preparer has access to that money to get it to you any faster. I know I've heard different things from people, and I like to point this out to you. If you go to some of the preparers and they pay you the day of, do you know that they are advancing you that money? Hence why they also charge the fees for it, because they're hoping that it comes back to them. This also was a big issue if you remember when all the economic stimulus payments were coming out. Economic impact / stimulus payments, whichever word you want to use, because they were sending them to what they were referring to as dummy accounts. And that's because certain organizations open an account just for tax season so that those funds can go in there and they front you the money. But I just wanted you to know, if you really do it and it wasn't fronted to you, this is the only place you can go to find out where it really is. All right, so prep resources. So with extension, I've done VITA now. This is my 5th tax season. 18, 19, 20, 21, 20. Yes, fifth tax season. And with that, we have tried to make this process as easy as possible for all our clients. So we have come up with quite a few different documents, and those links will all be provided to you to know what to bring when you come see us, or like this one that can be, we say to bring to us, but like this is for anybody. So these are forms that you should look through to make sure that you don't have those kind of things. You have some common ones, and then you have some others. We talked about a few 1099s, W-2s, and there's even more 1099s on here. G's, miscellaneous, all kinds of things. And the list can go on and on, but this gives you a pretty good idea of which ones you'll need. And then also, if you don't use a site, and we'll talk about different tax preparation resources, but like if you're using a tax preparer professional, that's perfectly great, but make sure they're not a ghost tax preparer. You're probably thinking, what in the world does that mean? They appear for a certain time of a year and then they disappear and they're no longer there and you can't reach back out to them. They're not a resource. All of those kind of things. Those are the ones you have to be careful for. And the ones that if they're a private company and they want to fund you, like they're a private person and they tell you that they're going to give you your money now and they're then going to take your return. What that means is your refund is going into their bank account. And so that they now have put their bank account information on your tax return. Again, one of those things they found with the stimulus and economic impact payments that was causing issues because people had done the same thing. These ghost preparers had to put their account info, so they were getting more of my money because they gave me the fronted money. So these are just things to think about. You want to make sure that it's you. And then, of course, for self-employment, we talked about that's a whole different kind of thing. And so it's a Schedule C is what it's called. But there are lots of different deductions that you can take for that to help decrease that self-employment tax, to help decrease the amount of taxes you have due on that money. So you definitely want to make sure that you're keeping track of those kind of things. So tax preparation. So like I said, there are many different things that you can do. So you have VITA, Volunteer Income Tax Assistance. There's AARP, which is a sponsor system who is also in agreement with the IRS and uses the same type system. Then you have TCE, which is for elderly. And then you have IRS Free File Online, which is where you literally can go in and figure out what system you can use for your income, your state, your age, everything, and put everything in on the system. And then, of course, you have paid preparers. There's not a right or a wrong answer. I will tell you that VITA and TCE have scopes, is what they're called. These are set by the IRS. Every season and what we can include or what we are allowed to do and what we are not to do. I used to think it was based just on abilities because we do have to get certified and there are different levels of certification, but I'm also learning it's not just certifications. It also is depending on what the software can do because sometimes there are software difficulties that we just can't make. There's not a button here or they didn't add this part of the form or those kind of things. So there are certain times that things are out of scope. For most basic returns, you can use a VITA or a TCE site. AARP does more advanced. Those tend to be more like retired CPAs, those kind of things, trying to keep up their hours for their certifications. So those are also options available. IRS Free File Online, like I said, you have to go in and figure out which one is the best one for you. And then, of course, paid preparers, depending on the complexity of your return, sometimes that is where you have to go. If you have lots of investments, a lot of times a paid preparer is the best place to go, just so they can make sure that you're getting the most bang for your buck and also that everything is reported correctly. But there are lots of different things here. Also with VITA, AARP, and TCE, a lot of times we do have an income limit. That is set by the IRS every single year and not determined by us. And this year it happens to be an AGI of 73,000. So if you make less than that, you're welcome at any VITA site. If you make more, unfortunately, that is one of those things that's considered out of scope. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know how I did that one. All right. The next thing is I want to put in a punch for us. So there are lots of different VITA sites in the state of Florida. I was actually very excited this year. I have seen more pop up. So there were many before COVID and then COVID happened and everybody backed off and there weren't near as many last year at all as there has been in the past. And this year it finally seems that they're coming back up. So VITA is literally a system. I'm governed by the IRS, but we are all volunteers. So I have to get certified in certain levels, like me and Daniel who are on here are advanced certified, but there's also military, there's international, there's basic, there's all kinds of different levels. But we only do the advanced certification so that we can offer the different resources. But IFAS Extension does this throughout the state. So this year we had Gadsden County involved, Columbia County, which is me, Hillsborough County, Nassau County, Hamilton County, I'm missing one. Wakulla County, and there's probably one more that I'm missing. And we also partner with the University of Georgia to provide these services to some of their clients as well. So we have closed for this year, but I wanted to make sure we put this out here because this is something we do every single year. So if there is an office nearby you, you are more than welcome to make an appointment there and come in and have your taxes done for free. And each year the offices vary a little bit because as we get new agents, some join, as some agents retire, we lose some, all of those kind of things. So those are just things to think about. Now, I do still have a resource for you this year if you haven't filed, and like Daniel said, you're getting close, but you still technically have 2 weeks left. If you haven't filed and your AGI is less than 73,000, this is a free resource that you can use. It is going to take you to a survey that is going to allow you to file your return it's going to take you through and ask you a couple questions because with extension, we always have to ask questions. And then it'll give you a link. You have to use that specific link to file. You can go in your return, exit your return, go back, but always make sure you use that link. As long as you use that link and you're under the 73,000, it's free file. Also, because this link is tied to the IFAS Extension program, you can contact any of the agents, including myself, but it has a list when you finish it of all of us who are close to you. If you have any questions while prepping your return, we can give you any guidance, anything like that. The cool part about this, it's called a FSA, Facilitated Self-Assist, is this is the exact same system that I use to prepare returns for the VITA system. So I know what the pages look like. I can tell you how to find this, what button to press here, all of those kind of things. So it makes it really simple to use. This is just another option on top of a lot of the IRS's free file, but this one with the free file, typically there's not a resource for you to call. When you use ours, we are the resource for you to call. All right, so I've made it through the basics of everything. I'm going to ask now that because I'm an extension agent, I didn't explain it at the front, but y'all probably have an idea. So with extension, the way that we are funded is through the land grant. And of course, they want data. Surprise, surprise, right? So I'm asking that you all go and take this survey. I can't get my sticky note to pop up and it's driving me nuts. Sorry. Go take this survey. It'll take you, I promise, it'll take you maybe 2 minutes, if that. And if you would go complete it so that we have the data to be able to say that you were on with us today. Yep, perfect. Thank you for providing it, Patricia. I was trying to get to it. All right, I'm going back in here to see questions, but feel free to unmute yourself and ask if you would like. So Thomas, you asked about if it's over 73,000. So with VITA cannot do over 73,000, unfortunately, and neither can the FSA link. There are a few programs in the IRS free file. If you literally go to irs.gov/free file, that can do over 73, but they're age-based and state-based. So you would have to kind of see. The other option with that is they do give you forms on there that you can fill out and be able to file. It would end up being a paper file, but those are the options. Because VITA is a free resource, it does have some limitations. AARP, though, typically does not have, or they are a little more lenient on their limits, is what I'll say. So if you can find an AARP site, they can typically help you out as well. I don't know if I'm saying your name right, and I apologize if I'm not, Jaya. Or Jay, is it just Jay? I don't know. I apologize if I'm saying it wrong, but it is Jaya. Okay. So it is done based on the agent. So each agent serves our county in the ways that the county is their needs, what their needs are. So VITA is offered in Alachua County, just not through extension. The University of Florida has partnered with United Way for I don't even know how many years. I'd have to have a really higher up. I know that the IFAS Extension VITA program has been going for 11 years, and they had the University of Florida and United Way had partnered previous to that. So United Way is the company that provides it in Alachua County, because our idea is never to try to step on anybody's toes. However, I am in Columbia, which is about an hour north of you, and I see clients in my office every year. So you're always more than welcome to come get an appointment with me. Can you send the link or the URL for the FSA, for appointments, for United Way? I do not have their link, but you can, again, the IRS, go on to free file and it'll ask like in person, and they can show you the locations right there around you. Most VITA sites are offered through nonprofit type organizations. So United Way is not the only one, but I know that in Alachua, United Way is the main one. Any other questions? Claim capital forfeiture. How do you typically submit this? So you're talking about a capital loss carryover? Okay, so a capital loss carryover, you actually have a particular box that you're going to fill out when you're doing yours for this year, because I'm assuming you probably didn't get rid of all your investments. And so there is a box that it is literally called capital loss carryover from 2022 is what it'll say. And that's where you will put in that information. If you use the same system from year to year, it typically carries it over for you. However, that would be the place that you would find it. I'm trying to think, Daniel, is it, sorry, I'm getting my schedules mixed up. Isn't it Schedule D where all of that one stuff is? You're muted. You're muted.
Sorry. Yes, for that, it should be a Schedule D.
Yeah. So your Schedule D from the previous year. Thank you, Daniel. I was pretty sure I had it right, but I was like, no, B and D. I don't want to get them confused today. So your Schedule D from last year will have where it'll talk about your capital loss carryover. And that on the Schedule D for this year, it'll say capital loss carryover from 2022. And that is what you're going to put in, or 2021, and you'll put it in for 2022. Because you're filing your 22 taxes, but it'll actually say that in there. You can do, depending on if you're married or single, depends on exactly how much you can claim. Also, if you're married filing separately, there's a different number that you can claim as well. So those are different variants. You get a refund for 20, but also have estimated tax payments for 2023. Do you send at the same time? Yes, Kim, yes. Just because unless there is a button when you're filing your taxes that you can choose to use your refund towards next year's taxes, that is an option. But if you did not choose that, then yes, you still pay them because they're going to pay you. So if you're getting a refund this year, your estimate, you may want to try that withholding calculator. You may be overestimating how much you need to pay, or there's where I said everybody's different. You might have investments that mess with how much you need to do. So just think about those kind of things. What happens with the refund if you file married jointly, but one spouse may? Oh, so the refund will be used toward. Okay, how do I? What happens to the refund if you file married jointly, but one spouse may? Oh, okay. In that case, I need a little more. I know I'm trying not to make it too personal, and I get that, but when you say what happens to the refund if married filing jointly, so you've already filed, you know you're getting a refund, but one of the spouses has past taxes or a past debt they owe. What? I'm sorry, I'm trying to follow, because if not, if you're filing together and like my husband doesn't withhold enough from his paycheck, but I withhold, so we have to pay taxes for what he didn't withhold, then my refund would be taken away to pay off his taxes because you're married filing jointly. Yes, past taxes. They will take them. The refund will be taken. If you have a spouse who, if you married filing jointly and you have a spouse who owes back taxes, they will take your refund for taxes. You never even see it. This may have been mentioned, however, what is the starting amount of income that filing is required? So here's the general idea to think about. If it is more than the standard deduction, you are required to file taxes. And honestly, if you're a student, there's a different number. If you're married filing separately, there's a separate number. If you didn't make enough, you could get earned income credit by filing. Like there's lots of variations in there. So if you think you should file, I would advise just to go ahead and file. Like I told y'all, my favorite question is, because I see with the VITA program, I see quite a few retirees. They always want to know, when can I stop filing my taxes? At what age? And my answer is always, there is not an age. It has nothing to do with age. It has to do with income. Any other questions? All right, well, I put up my last slide, which is my name and my information, but also at the bottom here, we do offer financial counseling related to taxes, any type of money management kind of thing, except for, as we said it earlier, we don't do international. You will have to go to the International Center for that. But you can always go there and submit a request, and one of the agents who is also an accredited financial counselor can contact you and give you support on any of the issues that you may have, or questions. If you're trying to budget something, if you're trying to plan some kind of thing into your life, those kind of things, we're always there to help with that as well.